Welcome everybody to our April exhibition night. Glad to see you all here and at the Channel City Camera Club. And I'll turn it over to our Director of Judges to introduce tonight's judges. Stuart, take it over.
Hey, thank you, Bill. Hi, everybody. So with our three judges tonight, first I'd like to introduce Tony Mastries. Tony has been a very faithful judge for us at the end of year judging primarily. And so we've kind of missed out on getting any critique from him. So hoping this will catch us up there. Tony is the head photographer at UCSB's Photo Services, where he has worked for the past 27 years. Prior to UCSB, he operated a commercial photography studio in the San Diego area, servicing a diverse clientele. A native of San Diego, Tony graduated from Palomar College before moving to Santa Barbara to attend Brooks Institute, where he graduated in 1990. Tony's duties at UCSB include photographing everything from architecture and art exhibits to soccer, basketball, and other sports. He's also responsible for producing portraits, scientific and marketing images, as well as maintaining UCSB's stock image library. So, Tony, thank you so much for being our judge tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Our other pro judge is Chuck Place, a very faithful and regular presence in our club. Chuck has worked as an editorial photographer for over 35 years, specializing in aerials, food, real estate, and people on location. His clients include National Geographic, Sunset Islands, Time, and Smithsonian. He's also the sole photographer of 6 books. Chuck taught at Brooks Institute for many years and now teaches photography classes at Santa Barbara City College and through private tutoring. Chuck has a popular blog with photography tutorials on a wide range of subjects, along with posts by other instructors. So Chuck, thank you very much for being our judge tonight.
My pleasure, always fun.
And our club judge tonight is the very talented Ellen Clark, who back recently from, I guess, a big trip in Mexico. We sure enjoyed your photos and Facebook. Ellen is a Los Angeles-based travel writer and photographer. Ellen has dreamed of traveling for as long as she can remember, always willing to go anywhere at a moment's notice. She's traveled to places she'd only dreamed about and has shared her adventures through photos and stories. She's won numerous awards, including being twice named Photographer of the Year by the Society of American Travel Writers. She has traveled extensively, particularly in North America and Asia, and her award-winning stories and photographs have appeared in magazines, newspapers, and guidebooks. So, Ellen, thank you very much for being our judge tonight. And turn it back to you, Bill.
Well, we're gonna get started right away. I'll do a little screen sharing. We move right into the first category, which is creative conceptual editing. And our first image is Aging Beauty. It's assigned to Tony for critique.
Yes, I really like this image. Actually, this was a really good way to start out the whole judging process for me. And I think it's nice composition, it's nice construction, it's got a good flow and really great color. I think it's a really well done composite, and I really like what the person has done on this. So I definitely think this is a good image.
Okay, thank you. Aging Beauty scored 26.
Right. Our next image is Azalea Mood. This critique is from Ellen.
I like the softness of this and the sort of the feel of the flower. I think that the sun or moon or whatever could be left out. I feel like it doesn't really add anything to the picture, and I think it's just would be fine without it. But otherwise, I think it's very soft and lovely and pleasant to look at.
Okay, thank you. Azalea Mood scored 20. That's 2-0.
Next is Kangaroo Paws. This critique is from Chuck.
I found this one really pretty fascinating, the different layers and the textures, and it really kind of the way this composite works, it kind of takes it away from being a recognizable flower and kind of represents to me kind of growth in kind of a dim, difficult environment. I thought it was beautifully done, and it's great composition, textures, color, everything is subtle, and the flowers, of course, pop really well. I thought this really was a nice piece, a very moody one.
Okay, thank you. Kangaroo Paws scored 20. That's 2-0.
Our next image is Meteorite, and the critique is from Tony.
So I think this image has got a lot of really interesting texture. I like the cool color. Overall, though, it's a bit hard to read. And I think the center really holds your attention, but it doesn't give you a lot else. It almost leaves me a little bit wanting for more information. The center draws me in, but I'm not really rewarded with anything else.
Okay, thank you. Meteorite scored 18.
The next image is Oak in Pasture, critique from Ellen.
I really like this. I like the cow in there, and I like the way it's kind of done in the sepia tone, sort of almost like a long ago image. I like the way the whole thing is done. I think it's nicely placed on the canvas, and I think that the fact that it's sharp in the middle and the cow is sharp, and that it kind of fogs out towards the edges, I really like. I think it's really a nice picture.
All right, thank you. Oak in Pasture scored 21.
Next image is Still Life with Pears. Chuck, the critique is yours.
I looked at this for a while, and I've shot some petroglyphs in Utah that look just like this.
Yes.
The Fremont had this. They look like aliens, and it's such a strange distortion. I like the image as an abstract, and again the different textures and the way it's framed. It's just there's no way really to tell what actually is in there, and that was part of the fascination with it. It looks a little bit like one of the alien ant movies as well, with the antenna and stuff. So I mean, you could interpret this thing in a lot of ways. I enjoyed the way it was distorted, and you could make almost anything you want out of it.
All right, thank you. Still Life with Pears scored 22.
Next is Surf Rider Dreams. Tony, this critique is for you.
So I think this is a really cool abstraction. It's got great texture, although I would almost like to see just one surfer. I love the texture and I love the flow, but I feel like the two images kind of compete. I realize it is what it is, but I actually do really like the image, though. The texture is really great, and I think they took an image and silhouetted the surfers and made this really cool textural piece of art with it.
Okay, thank you. Surf Rider Dreams scored 20. That's 2-0. So for the creative edit category, we have 3 accepted images. First is Aging Beauty, Judith Barrett. Oak in Pasture, Ken Pfeiffer. Still Life with Pears, Chris Eaton.
All right. Our next image, Nature, is the introduction of the first time where we're using the expanded nature category. It's actually a subcategory. So in this month's submission, members wanted to submit things that showed the intersection of human civilization and nature. This is the first in the nature and expanded nature. The image is aloe vera, and the critique is for Ellen.
There's something kind of intriguing about this. I like the softness, and I get what it is, but it's not quite strong enough to hold my interest. My eye goes to all the different little sticky things, and there's too much floating around. I think it needs maybe more of a sense of focus somewhere. I like the softness and I like the idea, but it needs something to hinge on to, I think.
All right, thank you. Excuse me, Aloe Vera scored 19.
Right, I guess get the background change. We'll just live with it this way again. This is called Big Horns and Raven, and the critique is from Chuck.
This is a really unusual combination, I'm sure. Finding I found though that to me the bighorn should be the main subject, but I immediately went to the raven overhead, and so it's almost like it's two images, and we can't decide which one is the important one. I think if that raven were down lower, possibly, but there's so much contrast between the raven and the sky that the sheep kind of disappear and they're almost part of the rock formation. And so I think that was my main issue. It's certainly a unique combination. And I know in this category, you can't just drop that raven in there. So it's some sort of a once in a lifetime kind of shot. But for me, the raven makes this rather distracting.
Okay, thank you. Bighorns and Raven scored 20. That's 2-0.
Next image is, excuse the pronunciation, Calabracoa, I believe, and the critique is from Tony.
So yeah, you did better than I did with the pronunciation there. I think this is a solid image with a good central focus. What I like to see would be to be a little brighter and a little more vibrant. I think it needs to be just a little bit more luminous. It's kind of an almost there image. They've got the great movement outward and from the central point of focus, but I think almost just a few tweaks and it would be definitely a better image.
All right, thank you. Calibroca, whatever that is, sorry, can't pronounce that correctly, scored 19.
Our next image is Carrizo Sky. The critique is from Ellen.
Well, this is certainly very bright and, is certainly is, kind of a treat for your eye, and your eye goes to the, where the clouds are going to, and then the road kind of enhances that. But I'd like, since you can put something of human, kind in there, I'd kind of like to see something besides just the I don't know what, a horse or a cow or something. But I think the lighting is good, and certainly it is, it catches your eye right off the bat.
All right, thank you. Carrizo Sky scored 21.
Next is Cicada, and the critique is for Chuck.
This is really a kind of a beautiful image, and it makes it almost sort of look like a fuzzy pet. Instead of these gigantic bugs, they're kind of bizarre looking. I ran into a hatch one time in Mexico, and in some ruins down there at Monte Alban, and the European tourists were much more fascinated with the cicadas than they were with the ruins. They actually formed little rings around each tree where the cicadas had climbed. So I like this one, and this is very similar to a geographic photographer that does a lot of basically a lot of wildlife, but usually on white, and it takes it out of context and really makes the insect very dramatic. So I think it's beautifully done. The lighting is really nice, and because it takes it out of that natural environment and puts it on a white background, it really pops. I think that's the main thing.
Okay, thank you. Cicada scored 24.
Next is Coastal Sentinel, critiqued by Tony.
All right, so I think this is a really cool image. It's got pretty good composition, though. I think they should be a little bit cropped off at the bottom. I think that's taking a little too much of your focus for the field of flowers. You still get the idea if you lose probably a third of that. And maybe a smidge off the sky, and just to put a little bit more emphasis on the gnarled tree, the dead tree. And I think it needs a little bit of pop of contrast, maybe even just a little bit brighter. It really needs to pop, and you really want to see all the detail in that old dead tree, whatever kind of tree it is. So I'm not quite seeing as much as I'd like at this point.
All right, thank you. Coastline Sentinel scored 18.
Next is Fog. Ellen, the critique is for you.
I like this. I mean, it has a moody feel about it. You're not really quite sure where you're going to. And I like kind of the mystery, the idea that, you know, who knows what's out there. So I like it from that standpoint. I think maybe it's a little too dark on the sides. Maybe it could be lightened up just a hair, the rocks or whatever. But basically, I think it has a nice mood, and that's what I like. And it's not right smack in the middle, which is a good thing. So, yeah, I like it.
Right, thank you. Fog scored 23.
Next is Kestrel. Chuck, this is your critique.
Yeah, this is a beautiful image. It's got composition's got great balance. I like the use of negative space, that really soft background. And the background works so well with the subject. The shadow is soft, so we've got really perfect lighting for this. Got a good highlight in the eye. It's actually watching the camera. It's one of those ones with my students when I do critique, I wish I had shot it. There's nothing I would change about this image. I think it's great.
All right, thank you. Kestrel scored 24.
Next is me. Tony, this is yours for critique.
All right, so this is a really cool, well, let me start over. So I said there's a really cool image in this image. And what I wish this person would have done was simply crop it into a vertical and gotten rid of all the, I wish I had a pointer for everybody, but the rocks and all the texture on the right-hand side tend to add a total distraction. So your eye gets taken away from the birds to this actually kind of interesting texture of the rock that's over there or whatever that is. I think if you simply crop it from the right and a little bit from the left, you have a much, much stronger image. And it allows you to focus on these birds screaming. You can almost hear them. And to my mind, the almost indifferent look of the mother bird just going like, oh my God. And maybe that's my interpretation. Sorry, but it's a really, really cool image, but I think it just needs to be cropped, and that could be done so easily. I mean, it would make it definitely a better image, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Me scored 22.
Next is Merganser on the Move, critiqued by Ellen.
I really like this. It reminds me of some kind of old hunting print, only obviously it's not it's not hunting, but I guess birding print. I don't know. I just like it. I think the kind of soft background and then a little bright birdie eye and just the whole thing. I like the color that it's taken on. I really like. And the fact that it's just enough fuzzed out in the background that you're not distracted by it. Yeah, I think it's really nice.
All right, thank you. Merganser on the Move scored 23.
Next is Nature's Inscription. Chuck, this is yours for critique.
You know, I've done shots like this before. Sometimes you wonder exactly what's creating these patterns. I think this is one of those wind-driven ones. I would like to tighten it up a bit. in this one, I feel like the right third doesn't really give me all that much. And I think if we cropped in a little bit tighter, and you could really recognize that these grasses actually, as they blow around, create these patterns. I think it would be a little stronger that way. Lighting is really good, perfect focus. But I think we've left a little bit too much in on the right-hand side, which basically softens the impact. Again, it's a delicate balance of keeping just enough material and eliminating everything that takes away the impact. And I think that's part of the issue here. I'd like to pull in from that right-hand side.
Okay, thank you. Nature's Inscription scored 21.
Next is Prowling Winter Wolf. Tony, this is you.
This image is just right on the money. The first note I wrote in my notes over here was nailed it. Everything is great about this image. The focus is dead on. The look on the wolf's face is just perfect. The swirling snow, the cool look, you just feel how cold it is. There's almost no way to make this image any better. And just like what Chuck said before, this is an image I wish I would have taken this shot because it's just so good.
All right, thank you. Prowling Winter Wolf scored 24.
Next is Rebirth After the Alisol Fire. Ellen, this is your critique.
Well, this little guy is so cute that, you know, I mean, I found myself naturally drawn to him, but there's too much stuff, in my opinion. It needs to be pruned down, and you can get the idea of the fire without having all of this on the right. I think it's another one that could be helped by taking it in from the right. I don't know if you would want to do a vertical shot or just simply cut out some of the right and some of the maybe bottom. But I would definitely close in. It's just not, it's too far away. There's too much other stuff, you know, messing up your sight.
All right, thank you. Rebirth After the Alisol Fire scored 18.
Next is Red Barn. Critique is from Chuck.
Well, this is going to be another one. In my view, it's essentially a perfect image. I've got these beautiful tones, these rolling hills. Everything looks like velvet. The different colors are perfect, and the barn itself just pops out. It's kind of a variation on Where's Waldo, but it's really easy to find Waldo in this one. That red barn just really lights up. Again, this is something I wish I had taken something like this. Great shot.
Thank you. Red Barn scored 24.
Yep.
Next is Sacred Outpost, and the critique is from Tony.
This is an excellent image. It's got really good composition. I have to nitpick it just a smidge, and I would say I would take a little bit off the left and maybe a smidge off the bottom, but the central area really draws your interest, and I might darken that just a little bit. If we have to be critical, I think the whole image has so much motion in it, and it takes you like a vortex to the center, and there's just not quite as much of interest there. So by cropping it a little on the bottom and on the left, you kind of shift the focus up to where the money is, and that is in those awesome cave paintings.
Mhm.
It's still a really good image, though, I have to say, and that's just a really good representation of those paintings.
All right, thank you. Sacred Outpost scored 22.
Next image is Safety, critique from Ellen.
Well, you know, I mean, this is such a fun, cool image, but you've got all that junk in the bottom, and I don't know what you can do with it. You've got you've got these branches where this little guy's head took me a minute to even find this guy, and it just is so distracting, and I can't really figure out how unless you were going to do some fancy you know, and you're not allowed to do that, I don't think, on this one. You can't fool around with stuff, but I mean, obviously it's great where you got the bird up above and then this little one peeking out. And it almost looks there like there's another something over here with little eyeballs, though I don't think there is. But it's that those darn bushes are just really, or twigs or whatever they are, really distracting. Somebody knows
Okay.
what to do with them, I'd like to know.
Okay, thank you. Safety scored 20. That's 2-0.
The next image is 6 frogs. Chuck, this one's for you.
Again, really an exceptional image, and it almost looks like the water is swirling in a circular motion. I doubt that it is, but it's fascinating, the effect, especially with the highlights on the water and on the frogs. And again, it's cropped perfectly. It's got great balance. Everything is pulled out of the center. We didn't pick one frog inside that was going to be our star. It's really the grouping and the way the grasses kind of swirl around in a circle. Again, I don't think there's anything I would change about this. It's got great impact, good color, looks nice and sharp. I'm getting all the easy ones tonight.
All right, thank you. 6 frogs scored 26.
Yeah.
Next image is Spring Sorry, this one is Spring Among Oaks. Tony, this is yours.
So basically in this image, my advice would be to zoom in or crop in, because you could basically, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record and you're going to hear a lot more of that, but the whole perimeter, this image could be removed, and the greenness, the verdant greenness in the center, and the delicacy of the orange flowers in there, we want to see more of that. You can leave the big arm of the oak there for framing, but anything more than that to the right, anything more than that to the top and the left and the bottom is really just kind of distracting, and it impedes your ability to see what's really in the center of this image. So I think a really hefty crop here would do this image a world of good.
All right, thank you. Spring Among Oaks scored 19.
Next is Spring Celebration. Ellen, this critique is for you.
Yeah, these are such pretty flowers and such a lovely, lovely, soft kind of an image. My only problem is I think it needs to be cropped on the top. There's, I think more focus should be put on the ones that are in focus, because frankly, my eye tends to drift upwards, and it's taking away from the sharp and really clear flowers. So I would crop it, maybe make it a square image.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Spring Celebration scored 19.
Next, we have Sulfur Reflection. This is Chuck's for critique.
Still getting the easy ones here. The one thing I might do on this, I mean, it's got great balance, good composition, great lighting. I'd get the camera down lower, because the formations in the water in the foreground are really interesting. And I think if we got that camera down closer to that subject, we could really kind of punch up that foreground and make those textures really quite a bit stronger, keeping the composition actually very similar, but really kind of magnifying that foreground and creating just a little bit more impact with it.
All right, thank you. Sulphur Springs Reflection scored 21.
The next image is Sunset Shore. And Tony, this one is for you.
All right, so I think overall this image to me seems just a little bit dark. I think it's exposed mostly for the clouds, but I think they could be a little bit brighter and definitely a little more vibrant in color. I might actually also crop off a little bit of the sky just above the clouds, because there's not that much interest there. So I would, even though I know what they were probably trying to do is get the rule of thirds and have your horizon down in the bottom third, but I think you could break that rule and make it a little more of a panoramic. But I think the basic problem here is it's dark. It needs more vibrant, and as we'll see, I think later, a much more punch if you're going to pull off a sunset kind of photo.
All right, thank you. Sunset Shore scored 16.
Our next image is Where's My Worm? Ellen, this
I
is
love-
yours.
I love this guy. I think he's hysterical. He just looks so squawky and like, I want it now. And the fact that the background is perfectly fuzzed out and the rock is fine. I think he's great. I think it's very sharp. It's very fun. And they got him just at the perfect squawk.
All right, thank you. Where's My Worm scored 22. So for the nature category, we have 14 accepted images, starting with Carrizo Sky by Bill Banning, Cicada, Bob Rottenberg, Fog, Greg Smith, Kestrel, Ron Williams.
Sorry, we've got a little delay on the pictures getting to across the bandwidth here. Okay.
Okay.
So Kestrel and then
Me, Stephen Sherrill, Merganser on the Move, Don Green,
okay.
Nature's Inscription, Stuart Wilson.
Yeah, let's hold on. Is it changing? I'm still seeing Merganser on the Move.
Now we have the
Okay.
Nature's Inscription there.
I
All right.
just got Nature's Inscription. So
Next one's Red Barn.
Um,
No, it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. That's my fault. Prowling Winter Wolf, Scott Vahey. Now we have the Red Barn, Ellen Clark. Sacred Outpost, Jorge Folco. Six Frogs, Dennis Roberts.
Love that.
Sulphur Springs Reflection, Bob Wagoner. And Where's My Worm? Bill Hayer.
okay, looks like we have some delay we're dealing with on some of the image changes. We'll move on into our next category, the open category. And the first image is Abandoned Club Med, the critique from Chuck.
Okay, I like stumbling on kind of gems like this, but I think the real image is right around that one window where the background is slightly lit up, and we've got all this great texture. I think we've got too much stuff in this particular image, and if we cropped in tight, not too tight, but a little tighter around that one window, we've got too much stuff to scan, and it's all kind of similar. So I think we've sort of missed an opportunity to really move in on that central section and work almost strictly with that.
All right, thank you. Abandoned Club Med scored 18.
Okay, next is Baja Beach Sunset. The critique is for Tony.
so this is a really nice image, and this is what I was talking about before. If you're going to try to pull off a sunset image, we've all seen sunsets. We know how brilliant they are and how vibrant they are. And this is the kind of image this is what you're going to have to give even the average viewer to make them be impressed. So with this image in particular, I really like it. Has a lot of detail in the shoreline. And I actually have to say, I think the bird in this one has that sort of X factor that I didn't believe it at first, but the more I looked at it, I thought, yeah, if that bird wasn't there, this image would not be quite as good as it is. So I think this person really nailed it.
All right, thank you. Baja Beach Sunset scored 22.
Next is Beach Fog. This is yours.
This is me, I think. Is it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I like this. I like the moodiness and ugh, I don't know if I'd want to be out there, honestly, in that kind of weather. But what bugs me is there's just too much stuff around it. I mean, I love the guy walking. They've got, and he's moving like you would like, but there's especially too much top and also too much bottom, I think. I don't know. I would just make the surfer bigger, and either I would play around with it. I might try making it a long narrow image, or I might try but I would get rid of there's too much background, too much bottom and too much top.
All right, thank you. Beach Fog scored 19.
Next is Budapest Memorial. And Chuck, this one is for you.
Yeah, this one's kind of a quirky one. I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would put the text in it. I think maybe I'd reserve that for a caption for this image. I'd leave the viewer kind of wondering what this is all about. And I might have shifted my camera position. There's flowers in one of the set of shoes on the left. And I think maybe including that gives the viewer a better idea that this is a memorial for people who have died for some reason. I think that would make the storyline considerably stronger. And then, like I say, I'm not a big fan of putting text over images like this. I think I would leave that for the caption. And again, maybe filling the foreground a little more and eliminating some of the sky. For the way it's set up now with text, you need that sky, but I think in many ways I would have moved in maybe a little bit tighter. Definitely would have included the flowers and made them more dominant, and the background. But outside that, it's pretty interesting.
I had a question about this, to tell you the truth, because it looks to me like it's some kind of a what I'm going to say, something that's a piece of not artwork, but that it's photographed. I'm not quite sure what it is, if you know what I mean.
It is a memorial. It's actually there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if we want to go off the rails and go on to the whole thing about it, but it's a memorial to people who were killed by the Nazis in
But it's not a picture
Hungary.
memorial. It's a memorial itself, right?
Yeah,
Because
the
it looked
boots are
weird,
actually there. I think
right?
they're actually made of metal, but anyway.
Well, it's a little
Sorry.
bit of an odd, to me, entry. I don't know.
Okay, well, thank you. Budapest Memorial scored 18.
Right. The next image is bull elk knocking antlers. Tony, this one is for you.
I think this is a really great capture of the moment, just the right moment, the positioning of the two elk are just right. I think it's a very good image. I'm not 100% sure if I like the one in the background or not. I've blocked it off with my hand dozens of times and I can't figure it out. But overall, I think it's a pretty cool capturing of some kind of spontaneous moment. And it definitely feels like that. Obviously, it's not staged, I would hope.
Okay, thank you. Bull elk knocking antlers scored 20. That's 2-0.
Next, we have city scenes. Ellen, let's see. Yeah, Ellen, this one is yours.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of the trees, but I think it's really needs, number one, I think it needs to be brightened up a little bit. And then there are all these people down there. I think I would have waited until there were less people, maybe let them walk through, and maybe one or two, because everything looks a little bit jammed. And also part of the problem, I think, is that it's a little bit too dark. Though I like, definitely, I mean, I like the idea of the trees and, the disappearing lines and so forth, but I would have waited for a better assortment of people or less people, I guess.
All right, thank you. City Scenes scored 19.
Right, next is Colorado River Scene. Chuck, this one is yours.
Yep. This is another one where I think we've got too much of our subject in here. The brush in the foreground really kind of blends in, and I think it becomes distracting. I think really what we're talking about are these different layers of sandstone cliffs, and so I think we should be cropping this into about half the size it is, and really moving in tight. We've got the one area that's actually lit, and then it drops off as we get closer to camera position. You know, so I think if you kind of use your hands and kind of frame this in much tighter, I think you could get a really dramatic image out of it. But I think we're including too much of this foreground and too much sky in this, which really don't really push this layer on layer effect, which I think is the strongest aspect of it.
All right, thank you. Colorado River Scene scored 19.
Next is Coffee Late in the Day. Tony, this is for your comment.
I love this image, I have to say. This is a great still life. I love the monochrome tonality. It's got an excellent graphical quality. This image takes me back to the work of Ruth Bernhard and Andres Kertész. It's just such a great image out of time almost. I think it's fantastic. The only thing that bugs me in this image is, and this might just be a peeve on me, is that the cup is kind of dirty. And I almost like everything else is so clean and so cut and so clear. I wish that wasn't there, but overall still, this is a wonderful, wonderful image.
All right, thank you. Coffee Late in the Day scored 23.
Next is Crimson Low Tide. Ellen, this one is yours.
Well, you can't argue with the colors here. I mean, they're really beautiful. It's almost enough to carry the image. I mean, there's not really, what you're looking at is not so much the image as the colors, to me anyway. That's the thing that really sings in this. It's a beautiful, it would be nice if you maybe had a bird like that other guy that was going through, but that didn't work out. But it certainly is lovely to look at.
All right, thank you. Crimson Low Tide scored 21.
Next is Falls in Yosemite. Chuck, this one is for you.
Okay. This is this looks like a Bridal Veil or one of those. I do like the way this is handled. I probably would pop the contrast a little bit more. I'd like to get that water really white, and keep these dark blacks that it's working through. I think that's the post-production really, I think, is where we really need to work on this. Composition is good. Looks like we've cropped it a little bit to make it a little bit narrower, kind of show the height and the feel of this whole thing. I just want to get that water a little brighter and make it pop a little bit more. The rest of it, I think, really works quite well.
All right, thank you. Falls in Yosemite scored 19.
Next is God is Love. Tony, this one's for you.
I think this is a great treatment of this subject. And I don't always love the HDR treatment kind of stuff and the techniques, but this time I think it really works. And I think it's just right for this subject. I think this, because the subject is so symmetrical, that the dead center placement will actually work. And it's just so interesting. And I don't know, I have to, truth be told, I actually know where this is and I've been to this, and I think this is a fantastic treatment of this particular place. And it, as Chuck said earlier, and we've talked a couple of times about, I wish I would have taken this image. I wish I would have got down there and gotten this angle, this old truck thing that's out there in the desert. But this is I really like this image. I think they did a great job.
All right, thank you. God is Love scored 24.
Next is Golden Flow. Ellen, this is for you.
Hi. Well, You know, it's pretty. I mean, this is a pretty plant, and it's nice, the yellow with the blue, so it's a nice complementary colors kind of feeling. But really, there's not much to it. I mean, it's a pretty tree, and it's a pretty sky, but there needs to be something like a bird or something to kind of pop it up to make us want to look at it. Otherwise, you're just kind of looking at what is essentially a nice, you know, a nice bunch of color, but it needs something more than that.
Okay, thank you. Golden Flow scored 17.
Yeah.
Next is Hiking Solitude. Chuck, this one's yours.
You know, this is a nice piece using leading lines. We've got that trail, and it visually lets you walk into the scene. The composition to me is a little bit off. I'd like to have the camera a little farther left. And so this leading line kind of worked into a little bit more of the center of the frame. It's almost as if the right-hand side of the frame is kind of forgotten. It just sort of was there when we shot it. I think if we change our camera position just a little bit, we can get this leading line kind of running diagonally across the frame and visually taking us back into these Sierra redwoods and stuff. I think that would actually make a big difference. And again, we talked earlier about post-production. I'd like to see the lighter areas a little brighter and the darks a little darker, just a little more contrast. So it's kind of a square image. Everything's going on the left, and the right is kind of ignored. And I think that's a compositional problem with this one we need to correct.
All right, thank you. Hiking Solitude scored 20. That's 2-0.
Next is Illumination. Tony, this is yours for critique.
This is a pretty neat abstraction, and it's got a lot of good motion. It takes your eye right in a big kind of circle that drags you to the bottom and back around to the center. It seems almost gloomy when you first look at it, but I have to say it really comes alive when you just kind of stare at it for a bit and you start noticing a bunch of little nuances and different tonalities and how one tone blends into another and how that makes it almost, well, it actually makes it three-dimensional. So I think this person actually did a really good job. It's a little subtle at first, but if you spend some time with it, I think it really rewards you with an interesting image.
All right, thank you. Illumination scored 18.
Is Into the Fog. Ellen, this is yours for critique.
I like this. It's real moody, and it's, you know, it's well laid out. I like the fact that the light, there's a light, and it's fairly, the fence is fairly clear at the very beginning, and then it gets more and more foggy, and the people are more and more foggy. I think it's a very moody kind of fun shot. I like it.
All right, thank you. Into the Fog scored 21.
Next is Morning Fog, and Chuck, this one's for you.
So this looks like a long lens is used on this, and is bringing that background in really close and creating really a lot of drama here, where if you're actually standing there looking at it, it may not have looked, the mountains may not have looked this large. So I think the focal length and such is used very creatively on this one, and basically this low strip of fog down at the bottom. It works really quite well. It's an unusual landscape, to be sure, and it's got that long kind of horizontal panoramic feel to it as well.
Okay, thank you. Morning Fog scored 19.
Next is My Autofocus is Broken. Tony, this is yours.
All right, so this is a pretty fun image that probably has an interesting story behind it. But overall, it doesn't have a real cohesive artistic appeal. You know, visually, there are too many centers of interest that compete to keep your attention. And the butterfly on the left, the face behind the camera on the right, and, you know, the camera itself is also a dead center. And it's really good to remember, as a rule, that anytime there's going to be text or any kind of writing in an image, it's going to attract the eye immediately, and you're going to want to read it. It's just something we do as human beings. So you have to be really cautious of that. And in this case, the Canon and the EOS 5D, that's not the most interesting part of the picture. So I would say that, overall it's a fun image, but probably we could have probably done something a little different.
All right, thank you. My autofocus is broken, scored 19.
Next, colors. One is for Ellen.
Well, certainly they're colors. And I have to say that I'm kind of prejudiced because I don't particularly like the green and blue. I don't particularly like the colors, but I can see that why the person would take them. I'd take this shot. I mean, certainly there's, it's well taken. It's just I have a prejudice about the blue and green, so I don't think I'm really completely fair on this. But as far as it's sharp and it's, definitely your eye leads onto the coast, and it is an unusual colored bridge.
All right, thank you. Night colors scored 23.
Yeah.
Next is overlays. Chuck, this is for your critique.
Okay. I think this is really quite beautifully done. So it's sort of the ultimate eucalyptus grove. And we're looking at both the top and the bottom of it, even the root system underneath it. I like the way it's all laid out, and the cardstock they used in the background really works with the sepia tone images. And as a collage, I think this works extremely well.
Okay, thank you. Overlays scored 24.
Next is Pacific Surfliner. Tony, the critique is for you.
I really love this image. I mean, this image is very, very well crafted. The sensation of movement and speed is great. And the rocks on the bottom and the static scene behind really anchor the image. The color is vibrant, but not outrageous. And I just think that the cloudy sky also adds an element. It fills in every portion of the image as your eye just whooshes through it. I think this is an exceptionally crafted image, and I actually like it a heck of a lot. And another one I wish I would have shot.
All right, thank you. Pacific Surfliner scored 26.
Next is Peppers. Ellen, this is your critique.
I like this. It's a still life, and it has that kind of old photographic feel. The only thing that bugs me is it's a window, I guess, in the back, and the fact that center board goes right smack down in the middle, and I can't stop looking at it. I wish that was not there. I find that distracting, but as far as I like the color and I like the tone of it and the way it has this kind of old-timey, almost it's not really sepia, but it's kind of an old-timey feel, the whole thing, and that I like.
All right, thank you. Peppers scored 26.
Next is Poppies in the Morning. And Chuck, one is yours.
Yep. I think, of course, poppies don't open until the sun hits them. They're heliotropic. And so you're working with kind of a limited palette. And because of that, I think our shot is really right in the center of this frame. The rest of it just is background and foreground and so on. And so, again, I think cropping in tight, placing this sort of crown of poppies just above the center. So again, we don't center everything. I think that would be much more dramatic. I like the cool tones contrasted to the color of the poppies, but they're still furled up. And so we don't have a lot to work with. If we move in tight, then we've got a dramatic image, but we've got so much extra in the background and the foreground that really doesn't help the image that much. So I think cropping much tighter would be the solution.
Okay, thank you. Poppies in the Morning scored 21.
Is Puebla at Night. And this is yours to critique.
So the image has a cool look. I actually really like the streaks in the sky, but the bright blue fountain in the foreground it just overwhelms the scene. I'd like to see either a bit more balance between the fountain and the buildings in the background, or maybe just have the fountain on its own as a singular subject. But your eye is constantly drawn from the fountain to this bell tower in the back. And I just don't see the two elements really jiving together. It doesn't really go anywhere from there. And so, yeah, do something, move the camera around. I'm not sure how many elements this is made out of, but something needs to be slightly different.
All right, thank you. Puebla at Night scored 21.
Next is Riviera Sunset. Ellen, this is yours to critique.
I personally think this is a little flat. I mean, if I was going to stay with this image, I would definitely crop in from the right-hand side because not much is going on over there. The rest, at least you've got the building and you've got the flowers and, you've got the, but I think it doesn't have quite the pop. It needs something else. And it would be helped, I think, by cropping in from the left, but I don't know that would really solve it. Maybe moving around and getting a different angle, looking out through the window or door or whatever that is there. Something needs, but it's just a little too blah.
Okay, thank you. Riviera Sunset scored 18. So for the open category, we have 11 accepted images, starting with Baja Beach Sunset, Stuart Wilson, Coffee Late in the Day, Dave Basso, Crimson Low Tide, Ken Pfeiffer, God is Love, Bob Rottenberg, Into the Fog, Zoltan Pushkash, Night Colors, Greg Smith, Overlays, Judith Barrett, Pacific Surfliner, Ron Williams, Peppers, Stephen Sherrill, Poppies in the Morning, Don Green, and Puebla at Night, Ellen Clark.
Right, that brings us to the people category. Our first image is aerial photography. Chuck, this is yours for critique.
Well, let's face it, this is a really fun one, and that's got to be a hard position to jump into, I suspect. I don't know exactly what we're saying about this. Maybe somebody's having a good time shooting. It looks almost like it's a train station or an underground station, something like that. Composition, everything is good. Like I say, I don't really understand what the storyline is about. I think if we had, say, a subway in the background and people are emptying out, then it would kind of work, I think. But without anything really going on back there, it's okay and it's quirky and it's fun to look at. But I'm not sure that there's that strong a storyline.
All right, thank you. Aerial photography scored 22.
Next is Airborne. And Tony, you're
All right, so there's a really cool image in here. I love the graphic silhouette, but the rigging all around the edges, while having really, it's graphically interesting, but it distracts from the main subject. I've played around with the cropper, and if you crop in to just the people with a little bit of the trees and just a teensy bit of the rigging, I think you have a much stronger image where the people become the dominant subject of the image. And I think it's just a much stronger image that way. And I hate to keep saying that, but it's hard for a lot of us, even for me today. Everybody wants to keep everything in. They see something that looks interesting. I want that in there. I want that in there. But you really got to figure out what really needs to be in there. And in this image, it's just those people and a little bit of that rigging and a little bit of those trees, and you've got a significantly stronger image.
All right, thank you. Airborne scored 19.
April, this is for you.
I think this is a really nice, it's a nice image. It's a nice portrait. I think that the light is very, very, very attractive. And I like the fact that you can see your other eye. It's not totally black. You definitely can see your other eye. And I don't know, I just think it's a very moody kind of, she's a pretty girl and it's a moody image. I like it.
Okay, thank you. April scored 23.
Next is Dear Friend. Chuck, for your critique.
Okay. Backlighting is really a useful tool. I think in this case, we need to get the sun a little bit more directly behind our subject. One of the things we're missing here is I like to have highlights in the eyes, and they're probably there, but because we've included the side of her face, which is fully lit with sun, then the face itself gets darkened down, and we've lit up just the edge of her nose and a little bit of her cheek. I think what we need to do is shift the camera right a little bit, get the sun more directly behind the person, the cropping and everything, a light tight cropping like this, and that works. But that would bring up basically her face would be a little brighter. We'd be able to see highlights in the eyes and so on and so forth. Right this way, I think that direct sunlight on the side is too strong and affects the rest of the image negatively in many ways.
Okay, thank you. Dear Friend scored 18.
Next is Fan Dance at the Exit Theater. Tony, this is your critique.
All right, so in this image, I think the composition is good. She's got a good look on her face, though the lighting is a bit harsh. Now, obviously, it's from performance. So then the fans in her hands are kind of interesting, I would say, but there's no context to where she is or what she's doing. So I feel that sort of limits the visual interest to a certain degree. I don't actually know what you could do. It's a performance. You can't control the lighting. You can't do much, but well, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it.
All right, well, thank you. Fan Dance at the Exit Theater scored 21.
Next is Four Wise Men. Ellen, is your critique.
Okay, these guys crack me up, I have to say. The thing is that, I mean, obviously they're the main subject, but all I can look at are the people over there in the corner who are chortling and holding a paper. Now, I don't know what the story is, whether this is some kind of a show that's being put on at some kind of a who knows? I have no idea. But I have to say that somehow, and it just there's just too much going on. I mean, I think these guys are great looking, but those people in the corner are just, it's too distracting. It's too distracting.
Okay, thank you. Four Wise Men scored 21.
Next is Little Sister and I. Chuck, for your critique.
I think this is really quite a beautiful image. I would not have cut the sister in the background in half like this. We've got a really dramatic child in front. I think if we basically moved back a little bit, included the entire face of her older sister, I think that the contrast between the two, it's about a stop darker. And so it's obvious that this is about the younger sister, the highlights in the eyes and stuff. But by cropping the face this way, I find that second face with just one eye kind of distracting, sort of wandering off to see what's going on in the background. And that's not what you want on this. You really want to see, in many ways, the connection between the two. And this younger girl in the foreground is such a dramatic image that I think we're doing a disservice by including just a little bit of a face in the background. We need to get rid of the person in the background or show more of her face.
Okay, thank you. Little Sister and I scored 24.
Is Mesh. Tony, this is yours.
This is a really interesting idea for a portrait. I think it works to a certain degree. And the eye position on the subject left is right on, but I feel the overall mesh itself is a bit too tight, and it takes too big a role in the image and obscures the subject a bit too much. The color is nice, and I like the way the mesh works as a background. If you really isolate it and look on her right side, the way the mesh kind of wraps around the side of her face, I think that's a really, really interesting effect. If anybody was to ever reshoot this, I would say use something that's a little bit more see-through and doesn't dominate the scene so much. And if you're going to have it ripple, the part on her forehead is a little too much in focus, because that adds another visual element for your eye to focus on, as well as the eyes, and it kind of takes away from that. But I think it's close, but not quite there.
Okay, thank you. Mesh scored 19.
Next is Iber. Helen, your critique.
I like the look of this. I think it works really well in black and white. It has kind of, it makes her, you know, since she's not young, it's almost like it's a, you know, a step back in time a little bit. And I think that suits her and the picture. I think I might have been tempted to crop in a little bit, take a little bit off the top and maybe even a little bit off the bottom to focus more on her. And I like the I like the fence going down there, but I don't think you need as much on the top or as much of her coat. I think you could crop in a little bit.
Okay, thank you. A neighbor scored 20. That's 2-0.
Next is Parasol Gal. Chuck, this is yours.
Okay. And here we've got direct harsh sunlight, and we've got a diffuser. She's carrying it. So if we just actually switch her around so that the parasol is on the left and blocking the sun, diffusing it basically, we might end up with a little bit of a pattern from the framework and the parasol, but we would see a lot more of her. It'd be a lot more complementary lighting than this direct sunlight that's harsh. Also, it looks like we've got a little bit of a glass there, and I have no idea why it's there. So again, it's not a fully formed concept, I don't think. I like the idea of using the parasol as a framing element. Maybe what we need to do is backlight her, shift her around, backlight her, holding the parasol this way. Her face would be in shadow, and then we can open up for that exposure, and that would make the parasol a whole lot brighter as well. So there's several different ways we can handle it, but direct sunlight like this is never really a good solution for somebody's face as a rule.
Okay, thank you. Parasol Gals, excuse me, scored 16.
Next is Puppy Love. Tony, this is yours.
So this is a super fun image. It's a really good look. I love the look on the girl's face and the dog as well. It's just awesome. But the elephant in the room here is the door on the right. This image needs to be cropped probably 40% off from the right. The door adds almost nothing to this image. I mean, if everybody just takes their hand and goes like this, you'll find yourself in a really cute picture of a dog and a person. And there's no distraction from this actually kind of interesting looking textured door on the right. I just don't know why that's even there. But again, inside this picture, this image right here lives a better image. So I would say, whoever's this is, please just do that, because I think you'll be a lot happier for it.
Right, thank you. Puppy Love scored 20, that's 2-0.
Next is Reflecting Curiosity. Ellen, this is your critique.
Well, for starters, I'm not sure, but it looks like somebody's thumb got stuck in the picture. Over here on the left. I'm not going to swear to it, but that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like when it happens to me. Anyway, so that obviously would have to, whatever it is, it needs to be gotten rid of. And I would also get rid of the little bit of whatever on the top. So it would just be the boy and the water. So I don't know, maybe make it a vertical or something, but I would sort of crop off the whole left side.
Right, thank you. Reflecting Curiosity scored 19.
Next is In Observation. Chuck, this is your critique.
Yeah, I love this one because very often when I go to fine art exhibits, I look at the images and wonder why somebody went to the trouble of printing it. You know, it's definitely, you know, my editorial background sort of blocks out some of the fine art you see out there, just because it makes no sense to me. And I love the fact that this person is staring at a blank wall instead of the actual exhibit. I might actually crop a little to the top and the right just to really make this whole thing a little bit stronger. But I love this take on fine art. I think that's a great idea.
All right, thank you. Study and Observation scored 21.
Next image is There It Is, critique from Tony.
All right, this is a wonderfully moody image, and I like the tonality and the feel. And again, I think just a teensy little bit of cropping would help emphasize this as a person, an image of a person. It would give the person a little bit more visual weight and still keep the wonderful mood and feel. And this, almost but not quite monochrome. You have this just very muted tonality that it gives so much mood, and there's so much a sense of you're on this beach in this foggy day, and there's just a little bit of color. But just crop a little bit from the bottom and maybe just a smidge from the right, and this is an excellent image.
All right, thank you. There It Is scored 20. That's 2-0. So for the people category, we have 6 accepted images. First is aerial photography, Steve and Cheryl. April. Bill Banning. Fan dance at the Exit Theater, Dave Basso. 4 Wise Men.
Yeah, it's just
Bill
taking
Halyard.
a while, sorry.
Okay. Little Sister and I, Bob Rottenberg. And Study and Observation, Deb Gibson.
All right, that brings us to our print category. The judges hard copies of 3 different prints. The first one is Joshua Trio. The critique is from Ellen Clark.
I'm waiting. I think this is a very clear, well-printed print. It, you know, it's I mean, it's absolutely what it is, and it's very sharp and very clear, and there's nothing wrong with it, really.
Okay, thank you. Joshua Trio scored 22. Next
Image is Pigeon Point Light, and this one is critiqued from Chuck Place.
Yeah, this is kind of a kind of a hand tinted piece, the way it looks. I like some of the texture and stuff. I'd like to see, because lighthouses are basically sentinels, possibly a little light in the lantern house, or possibly some more shoreline in this. You can actually shoot Pigeon Point from a couple different angles and include more ocean in it. I think it's kind of it's good to a certain point. I think it could be stronger depending on how we handle it. But I especially like the moody tinting that's going on here, and the vignetting actually really works well for the tower of the lighthouse as well.
Okay, thank you. Pigeon Point Light scored 20. That's 2-0.
The next image is Takeoff. And Tony, this one is for you.
All right, this is a nice image. It's nice and sharp. They've got it at the peak action. I think overall, it could be a little bit warmer to emphasize the brown feathers. It's got a little bit of a cool tone to me. And I think that it would just help emphasize the bird's feathers just a little bit more. And I think, again, as the last one, I'll say it for the last time, maybe just a teensy little bit of a crop, you know, I don't know, maybe from the top and a little bit from the right. I kind of like the reflection in the water of the bird, maybe keep that, but there's not a whole lot going on above it. And I just want to zoom in just a bit. I want to see the bird in a little bit more detail than I'm getting here, because it looks like there's a lot of detail there to be seen. So why not show it? We don't need necessarily all the details in the water or whatever the schmutz is there. So, you know, just pull it in just a bit. And I think it would be just a little bit stronger, but overall, I think it's really quite a good image.
Okay,
I don't know how people get these great images of birds and stuff.
Takeoff scored 21. So for the Prince category, we have 2 accepted images. Joshua Trio, Bill Banning, and Takeoff, Ron Williams. And that looks like it's it for tonight, except for any.
We do have a video. And just a reminder, this image is on the Flickr website for the club in the exhibition, April exhibition night. It's actually the only thing in there right now, but if you want to see it in a little better resolution and such, you can watch it on your computers at a later time. But here we go, Carpinteria Bluffs.
Located on the southern tip of Santa Barbara County, you'll find this expansive stretch of open space. Breathe in the fresh air while listening to waves crashing on the shoreline below. The mostly flat, approximately 2-mile trail is lined with bright yellow wildflowers and sage. You're likely to see squirrels, small lizards, and bees buzzing around the flowers. Dogs are welcome on a leash. When you walk a bit further through the neighboring Rincon Bluffs Preserve, you might even see parasailers taking off in flight. You'll find a map and more details at scenicsb.com.
Okay, critiques from any of the judges that would care to offer comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. When we've got a place like this with signage, I'd like to just basically hesitate the video on that signage so you actually have a chance to read it. I always find it frustrating when we've got a little bit of signage and the camera just sort of zooms past it. And so I think we could have sort of moved, especially that one sign, we could move a little slower in the pan and then move into it. And the second thing is it seems to me that the Harbor Seal Rookery is right below the bluffs. And I know there's signage with that. And so it seems an odd thing to leave out when that's really one of the most common reasons for people to access the bluffs.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Right.
Outside of that, I liked it. I thought it was really quite well done.
Yeah,
Ellen, Tony, any comments?
Yeah, I thought it was very professionally done. The narration was excellent, and whoever they had as narrator, and that's it. That's an important thing, because that'll if you don't have a good narrator, I mean, you're going to be as lost as if you don't have any good video work. The only thing, looking at the original version, might have been a little hard for people to see it here on the replay. The slow-mo at about the 42nd point gets a little jittery, and so that's something you definitely want to not have, because otherwise it was actually quite professionally done. And without that, I mean, you could have easily seen that somebody, paid you to do it. Somebody paid for that, because it looked really quite done. And the narrator sounded like a total professional.
All right, thank you. We are wrapped up for this evening. I do want to remind folks that we have no meeting next week, but in 2 weeks we have program night coming up, and fourth Tuesday at the end of the month. We hope to see you all there, and keep watching your emails for more details on those as they come. Personally, a special thanks to our judges and board members that are participating and making this possible tonight. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
judges.
It's fun as always. It's always a blast.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. Good to see everyone. Take
Bye.
care. Hopefully we'll see you next time.
Great work.